Peter Block's an author and community organizer out of Cincinnati is his home base, and he stands for, in my opinion, the message that has resonated for me has been about how a community can reach abundance by changing the way it thinks about itself. Almost every community has resources, and he calls them gifts, and the idea is bringing gifts together in community to address issues, to address problems. It's not that you need to call on the National Guard to do this. We have the resources here in town, and so for me, that's been the most important and resonating factor for me, is the idea that gifts are present and we have them here, and we just need to recognize them.
You know, Peter Block's concepts about community and social fabric and how leaders need to think about leading differently really moved me, not only from my own philosophy, but from the philosophy of our organization. We are people with disabilities, and we have this title saying nothing about me without me. And so that says include me in the decisions that you as professionals are making about my life. And that should be about the community as well. And so when I read his book, I thought, you know, these are some major concepts about community, about how to lead, about how to invite people to the table.
I am very excited that Peter Block is coming to our community, because the premise of his book celebrates community, our sense of belonging, and the belief that everyone shares a gift. And I'm very excited to involve our communities together in really celebrating that each of us have a gift to bring, and that together we can share a restorative community.
I think of myself as a social activist. I've been doing this about 40 years, you know, starting with burning my bra. But nothing's changed. Nothing really changed significantly for the lives of people that I care about. And so when Peter Block said, you can create a future different from the past, and guess what? It's your job to do that. And you can do that by coming together and having conversations with people in your community to build that future. And I really thought, yeah, I couldn't pass a law to make things different. I mean, we passed a lot of laws in the last 40 years, but it didn't really make things different for people. And so when he said, in your community, you can sit down, you can think of the possibilities, you can dream about the future community that you'd like to live in, I thought, I'm going to do that.
Peter was a real revelation to me in his concepts and ideas. He basically told us to take a look at ourselves and how we were engaging with people around us. Engaging with people around us in an inner city where you have incredible diversity, age, economics, color, you have a real challenge. And so to engage in people in ways that invite people in is really quite important. And Peter Block's reading of his book, Community, the Structure of Belonging, he helped me understand that some of the things that we were doing, even though we meant to be welcoming and inviting, were quite possibly distancing us from others. And so his concepts allowed us to really take a better look at what we were doing and try to be more inviting and welcoming, not only in the words and the body language, but in the actual structure of the gathering.
I've read a lot of Peter's work, and it's connected to me. It's just resonating with me, and how Peter talks about authentic communication, about how we need to be in conversation with each other, and how relationships, associations, and gifts matter. And what we're going to be exploring is the idea that every person in our community has something to contribute, and how those gifts can work together to make our community better. And how we bring those gifts together is through conversation, it's through association, it's through bringing people together and talking in a way that maybe we're not used to sharing, in ways that can lead to a commitment, can lead to true understanding, can lead to a collaboration at a level. We talk about collaboration a lot, but this is a way that really connects people together in a deep way, in a meaningful way.
So back in the fall, I invited several people in the community to read this book. Disability Connection West Michigan bought this book and said, would you please take time and read with us? And we'll have 3 meetings and we'll see where it takes us. During that time, you certainly have seen this community go through some real serious challenges. Teenage violence, gang violence, downtown design concepts. And so the more we can get Peter's work to say, how do you invite community and members into the conversation, and then own that conversation. So often we look at the issues that we have in our community and say, well, it's the leaders' problems to fix it. No, it's not. The leaders have a responsibility to convene the community in a way that's inviting and say, we have a problem. How can we fix this?
Anyone who's interested in the Muskegon, the West Michigan area becoming a stronger, a more associated kind of place, I would certainly invite community leaders, but they're not always the ones that need to be there. The folks that are maybe some of the unofficial leaders in their neighborhoods, some of the folks that care deeply enough to stand up and raise their hand when something needs to be done. Those are the folks that we really hope will turn out to this. If it's the same old group of people that always comes to these things, then we're missing some voices that absolutely need to be heard. As I've gotten into this, I've watched communities around the country grab onto this idea of essential conversations, bringing people together to have meaningful conversations about who we are, what we can bring to each other, how we can work together. And I've watched that happen here in Muskegon as more and more people have read his information, have kind of embraced this idea that we can be in association with each other and bring our gifts together, and that's enough, and that there's enough there. And I watch people in meetings talk about the gifts that they bring to the table, and it's been amazing to watch how it's kind of infused itself into the culture.
And so what's changed for me as a leader is we've completely changed how we engage neighbors when we meet on a monthly basis. We normally had our reports from all of those that were involved in our organization, the treasurer, the secretary, all of that business type stuff, and left a very small portion of time near the end of the meeting for anybody who happened to show up that had something to share. And so listening and trying to get a better understanding of what Peter Block's concepts were, it helped us to say we're changing our meetings, and we are now going to call them, not even call them meetings, we're calling them gatherings. And the gatherings are scheduled each month, and people are invited. Some choose to come, some choose not to come. But when people show up, we have brief introductions and then simply raise a question and call upon each person to respond to the question. And the key to the gathering is, number one, everyone is heard. And number two, that we design a question that engages people to a point where if they one of them was, what is a good neighbor? What is a good neighbor? Well, if you respond with certain things, you then ask yourself, well, do I do those things? Do I take care of others? Do I look out for the people that live nearby me? Do I know the people that live nearby me? And so his concept is, we're first citizens. We're not consumers, and the city or the government is not here to provide anything for us. If we're going to have safety, if we're going to have security, if we're going to have a life where we thrive, that can only come from within. that can only come from rebuilding the fabric of our neighborhood. And so we've changed the way we gather on a monthly basis and call it a gathering and have a question to start the meeting. And then sometimes we are actually having to take the whole business part of our meeting and move it to an executive board session, separate date and time, because the gathering really generates some energy. And there are some folks there who, once they're heard, they're feeling like they belong and they have connected with us. So that's the exciting part of it. The second thing that we've done is we've taken a look at the fact that some people don't come to us. They don't come to our meetings. Going to a neighborhood association meeting is probably way down on the list of things to do on a beautiful summer in Muskegon. But we said we then have to go to them. And so we engaged the businesses and the churches in our neighborhood and said, let's connect in a different way. Let's go to the people in our community and let's start a program where every week this summer we have a gathering somewhere in our neighborhood. And the businesses have been very generous in underwriting these events, and the churches have been very gracious in hosting these events. And we will be having conversations and gatherings at each one of these. I think there are going to be 10 different events this summer. And so we are going to go to the people where they live and be out talking to people and inviting people several days ahead of time and then engaging them in a conversation. Some of it will be just getting to know each other, but some of it can be much more productive and much more engaging if we are able to get some trust and some respect. And of course, that will take time. But our response was, we can't expect somebody to come and fix this. We can't expect the police to keep us safe. We have to do it ourselves. And we need to be citizens, not consumers.
The conversation that produces more than just talk is the invitation. What are the possibilities? Who's the ownership? People have to own it. There's going to be dissent. And dissent is not a bad thing. It's an opportunity to engage and educate people, because we can't always agree on things, but I only know what I know. And so allowing the opportunity to engage in how I feel about a topic is so important. And then the commitment to do something about that, and then the gifts that each person brings to that table. So we go from problems to possibilities. We go from fear, fault, to gifts and generosities. We would move from law and oversight to building a social fabric and a community with accountability. And then lastly, the focus goes from leaders to citizens. And that becomes the social fabric of our community. What will you do, and what are your gifts and talents to bring to the table? So often we see, particularly again in the disability world, people as being broken, people with disabilities as being broken. They don't see beyond what talents, instead of what's wrong with you, let's look at what gifts and talents do you bring to the table, and how can we incorporate that into our community?
If you care about this place and you look at the results of all of the many, many efforts that have been engaged in over the years and see the result, you know it's time for something new. You know it's time for something different. And it's a time for us to really look at how we engage with each other. Do we engage with each other? Because there are many people that live in the greater Muskegon area who absolutely do not feel any way connected to where we live. And that's the problem. That's one of the problems. When you have such division and such disconnection, that it makes it very difficult to say this is a community.
We're hoping that in March that we're going to have the opportunity to bring folks from Ottawa County and Muskegon County together around issues like education and safety and transportation and some of the things that we know are important to build a vital and abundant community, which is the term that Peter Block uses, and how we can work together to make that happen. It's important that the people that are there are certainly leaders, but we also want the citizens of our community that care enough to make that commitment to make Muskegon and Muskegon County and Ottawa County a better place to live. Peter Block and this concept of forming an abundant community, to me, really boils down to let's bring our gifts together into association, and then we need to extend our hands to strangers. It can't be the same group of people always meeting. We need to open up and be, it's hospitality in Peter's words, we need to be inclusive of everyone. And certainly the grant that we're bringing Peter Block under is including our neighbors. And it's how we can more meaningfully bring folks with disabilities, folks who have been on the margin, how we can bring them into the circle and bring them into those conversations. They have something to say, and we need to hear it.
I am really excited to have Peter come and facilitate a conversation with the people in my community about the future we can create.
That's what moves me about the idea of Peter Block coming here, sharing his story, engaging the community, getting it on fire so that we can have a healthy, vibrant community. And it doesn't take money, it just takes community.